This is Invest Now America. I am your host. Folks, I'm going to read this article to you. It's written by Christopher Brooks. It was written back in December 27, 2021. I don't know how I came upon it here in 2022, but I did read it, and I really felt it necessary to respond to it. And I do hope many of you share my response with other people. I don't like the article. It's well written. Don't get me wrong. It's well written. It makes its case, includes facts, figures. That's good. It's just that I absolutely oppose the conclusions this article reaches and some of the premises. So let me just read it to you real quick. Here's the title of it: Not Just About the Dollars, Why Building Wealth is More Than Money, and How Black America Can Close the Wealth Gap. And reading the article just straightforward. Black Americans are estimated to have more than $1 trillion in buying power in coming years, making the highest amount of spendable cash they have ever wielded in U.S. history. Still, that money won't necessarily translate into an opportunity to build wealth, experts told. Now, I can't pronounce this. It's FINURAH, adding that building wealth isn't solely about having dollars to spend year after year. It is going to take sweeping federal policy combined with Black Americans investing in themselves in order to truly close the black wealth gap, according to experts. I'm going to comment on this right now. You're talking about building wealth, and you're talking about buying power, income, group income. I do not dispute this figure of $1 trillion. Other people have stated that, and it goes back to the founder of Black Heritage Products, Dr. Juanza Kunjufu, many other people I find very credible. Then it sort of jumps. That money won't necessarily translate into an opportunity to build wealth. Well, I totally agree with that. Income is the money you make. Wealth is money that you own. Okay, there's a difference between income and wealth. Wealth is where you own more than you owe. And if you have regardless of the fact, if you have a lot of money flowing through your community, if you're not buying assets and decreasing debt and liability, you're not going to have much in the way of wealth. Look at like lottery winners. The vast majority of them, they get this sudden wealth. A few years down the road, many of them are broke, and many of them are worse off financially than what they were before winning the big lottery money. So obviously, it's not about income. Wealth is about decreasing debt, limiting liabilities, and buying assets. There's a great YouTube channel called Earn Your Leisure. Two young brothers do that. Earn Your Leisure. And they wear T-shirts that says assets over liabilities. So I absolutely agree. If a good part of that $1 trillion that black folk have as a group is not invested in the stock market, invested in profitable companies, if it's not invested in property, no. I mean, it's not going to build wealth. Here's the other problem I have here. Let me quote this. It's going to take sweeping federal policy combined with black Americans and investing in themselves in order to truly close the black wealth gap. First of all, it's not the federal government's role to decrease or increase other people's wealth, particularly based on race. Now, of course, somebody's going to say, well, the government does this, the government does... It doesn't matter. Two wrongs don't make a right. It's not the government's role. We don't need a federal policy. What we need is for the feds, what we need is for the government to get out of the way. Less government, more prosperity. Here's the other thing here. In order to truly close the black-white wealth gap, I don't want equality with white people when it comes to wealth. I want everybody, every individual, every family to go after in building as much wealth as they want. This is not an equality issue. I don't want equality. I want opportunity. And I want the opportunity to kill it if I'm to kill it. I mean, that's just it. I want that opportunity. And with opportunity, with great risk comes great rewards. And with minimal risk comes minimal rewards. That's great. I want that for everybody. But this is not an equality issue by no stretch of the imagination. Now, let me go on with this article, and I'm quoting here. The problem is so large and has lingered for so long that it will take sustained, large, and targeted policy intervention from a federal government perspective, said Christian Weller, a political economist and senior fellow at the Center for American Progress. He's dead wrong. He's dead wrong. He's not, that's not, I totally disagree with him. Totally disagree with him. You ever look at some stats? They said like 70% of the millionaires in the United States are first generation. None of them are whining about, 50 years ago, 75 years ago, 100 years ago. They're saying, look, right here and now, I'm making this commitment. I'm going to pursue wealth. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. And one thing they come up with is that, man, they got to stay away from debt, control their liabilities, and multiply themselves in the way of buying assets. That's about it. It's a real simple formula. Now, I get it. Some people like Robert Kiyosaki might disagree with that, and it's hard to argue against success like Robert Kiyosaki. But I pretty well guarantee you, if you were to go to Robert Kiyosaki and say, hey, we need more federal government intervention and policies and all, he would tell you, heck no, you crazy. That's the last thing people who are trying to build wealth in the United States need. So then this article goes on and says 2021 predicts that Black America is buying up from $910 billion in 2019. Black consumers own and will continue to be coming in years. To place that figure in perspective, 1.7 trillion is about the gross domestic policy of Mexico. Okay, most of the enhanced spending will be concentrated in predominantly black cities: Atlanta, Detroit, Houston, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. Look at every last one of those places. A good many of them have absolutely abysmal living conditions and education opportunities for black folk. Just think about that. Okay, so Weller and other experts said many Americans incorrectly believe spending more money at black-owned businesses will solve the wealth gap problem. Well, I don't know who's saying that, but I haven't heard too many wealth-building people have said that, and I agree with them. I think it's ridiculous. You can't spend your wealth. You can't spend your way to wealth. You have to. The simple formula I use, and I've learned this from wealthy people, from successful people: eliminate debt, limit your liabilities, increase your assets, time and time again. What are assets? That's an economic instrument that you own. It's an economic instrument that's putting money in your pocket. Spending money doesn't matter if you spend it with a white person or a black person or an Asian person or a Spanish-speaking person. Doesn't matter. That's not what's going to lead you to wealth, and it's definitely not going to lead you to wealth even as a community. You got to be focused on buying assets. Keep buying assets. Those assets are going to help you get to the point to where your money is making money, okay? It's not about spending a lot of money at businesses. I totally agree with that. I'm going to go on, keep quoting here at this article. Experts said today's massive wealth gap between black and white Americans has less to do with what black people have spent their money on more to do with the ways the federal government has allowed wealth to be siphoned from black neighborhoods. And he talks about the 1921 Tulsa massacre of Black Wall Street, 40 years of redlining policies, and little access to startup capital for today's black businesses are recent reasons why there's a gap, experts say. I think that's part of the reason. I do not think that's the majority of the reason. I think that's part of the reason. I do not think that's the majority of the reason. Not at all. I think the majority of the reason is that we need more of a wealth-building mindset within the black community. I've seen a couple of families, black families, who've just like thrown money away because they don't know what it means to get an asset and to use that asset to make money, and then after a while your money's making money. You have to understand what constitutes wealth. Debt, consumerism, liabilities, fancy cars, jewelry, that's not wealth. Wealth is the money you own. And wealth is where your money is making money. Doesn't matter if you're sleeping or if you're running around, your money's making money. Warren Buffett once said you'll never be wealthy if you're not making money while you're sleeping. I mean, that's a pretty profound, simple, profound statement from a guy who's one of the wealthiest people in the world. Okay? Your money has to be making money. And I totally agree. Spending money at black businesses, white businesses, Asian businesses, Latino businesses, that's not going to help that's not going to build wealth within the black community. Buying a bunch of stuff is not going to do it. Totally agree with that. Increased federal intervention is definitely not going to do it. It's definitely not going to do it. Understand this concept. Less government, more prosperity. We don't need more government intervention. We need less of it. And also, it's just not the federal government's role to do that. It's just not their role to do that. And more often than not, when they do try to do it, they mess it up. What black folks need to do, let me recommend some books. Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice by Dr. Dennis Kimbrough. Books by Dr. Boyce Watkins. And I strongly suggest you read biographies on A.G. Gaston. A.G. Gaston. Okay? All right, that's Invest Now America. I'm your host. Please like, share this podcast.